Hello, this is Dean Radin, and I'm on Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, Cultural Creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to join you with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and you're listening to Your Superior Self, the podcast that helps us remember that the greatness that we're constantly in search of, that we're constantly searching for, that usually points externally of us, is, in fact, right here within us. It is right under our noses. It's not in the self-help industry, the billion-dollar industry of helping people find the abundance. No, but it's right here within us, realizing the power that we have to create our own realities in this life. And to help point us in that direction, to help us remember this power that we have, each and every one of us, I have Catherine Weissenberg joining the show. Now, Catherine has been sharing her unique ability to communicate in dialogue with God, the deceased, and coma patients for decades. She writes about this gift in her new book, Beyond Ever After, and you can find out more about her at beyondeverafter.com. Catherine writes the conversations as they occur, and we have an example of that today on the show in her real-time communication, my questioning and her answers, so that you guys can experience these writings for yourself. And she's been grateful to serve others by facilitating these types of transmissions of spirit, wisdom, and healing energy for years. I'm very excited to have her on the show, and I hope you guys enjoy this. To give you an example of her wisdom, here's a small clip.
We have a filtering system to the smallness and fear rather than the greatness embedded in all beings. So if fear's I'm going to contract here, I better, if I'm always trying to get up the mountain rather than hey, I'm already here and I'm just going to look around and see what the view is. Because I think we all have opportunities if we're not trying to scale those or weigh them all the time, we find out that we're touching people, that we are making a difference. And, but maybe if we're so busy, trying to scamper up some kind of ideal of that we have to be more, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to improve ourselves or shouldn't learn or we shouldn't read or we shouldn't do all that, but we're invited, I think, to not do it, not make that our a priori thing and say, what is it that's in my sphere here and now, in my direct experience to touch and have interact and engage with?
Yes, I can immediately take that advice and apply it to my life immediately. I don't know about you, but for me, for sure. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the great and powerful Catherine Weissenberg.
Hi, everyone. It's Catherine Weissenberg, and this is Your Superior Self.
I love the swagger. Catherine coming in hot. I like it. Thank you so much for joining. How are you?
Good. My pleasure. How are you?
Good. It's the second time you're coming on the show. I had to have you back because I think that your gift is that important. I think that we need to share these talents with the world, and I had to have you back. Your story is so interesting. Why don't we give some folks some recap on that, right? How did this gift come to be?
Well, I was in graduate school studying communication, and I started having these very unusual experiences. Thought I was losing my mind, and actually found out that I had this emergence of this gift, which is that I can facilitate conversations with God, deceased people, and people in comas. And so, but initially I just thought I would have information and I would think this is crazy. And I would kind of be just directed to share it with strangers, complete strangers. And I would be like, oh no, I don't want to do this. But then I do this, and whatever I said, people would have these reactions to, and it would be meaningful to them, even though I did not understand at all what the messages were. And so I knew that there was no way that I could be saying things to people that meant something to them
So
if it wasn't for real.
yeah, right. I mean, that's like I think there's an example in the book that we discussed last time where you walked up to a table of people in a restaurant and said, there's something I need to tell you. And you said something and they were kind of in awe that you would even know that information.
Yeah. And I wouldn't know what any of this meant. And people would just be like, they would cry, or they would like, how do you know this? Or the reactions varied. And then I'd be like, okay, I got to get out of here. This is too weird. I would be embarrassed. So, yeah. And then it just kind of went from there and became more like what I do now, which is not at all strange. It's just very refined than it was in those days. And I guess, it had to be like that to get my attention. And
Sure.
I was the only one that needed to be convinced.
Yeah, you got to wake up from that, right? Like, because I don't know. I mean, I haven't experienced what you experienced it, but I've heard a lot of people's stories, and it's like you have to experience like in getting outside of your comfort zones with these types of gifts, because that's how you kind of, I don't know if you don't necessarily prove it to yourself, but you kind of like, it reaffirms, that you have something special.
Yeah. And I think that, I think as human beings, sometimes we resist being special. Anyway, like as a matter of course, just of receiving our own gifts. So, and definitely this was out of the ordinary, and I was being trained to be a good social science researcher.
Oh,
so
how was
I
that?
was like, so I really was like being taught that you need empirical data. And I was like, this is too weird. And so it was at a point in my life where I probably needed more assurances, or I don't even know. And finally, it continued to happen, and it got crazier and crazier. And I just thought, there's this like no way. If I hit myself on the hand with a hammer, I can't deny that it happened. And I'm never going to understand the mechanics of this or how it works. And so I just have to give up this looking for a suitable explanation thing,
Sure.
and just like roll with it, like all of life, right? We sometimes just go like, okay, I give a uncle.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like the classical Western mindset where we want to be able to feel and hold our souls, right? Like, I don't believe we have a soul until I can see it and measure it and make sure it's there, right? Like where Eastern traditions is more or less more all about faith. And, that's how they basically expand their consciousness and expand their spiritualities through that modality where we're, because I'm going back to for psychology, and like they're trying to turn me into this scientist, and it's like I'm like struggling a little bit because I'm to the part now where I'm doing the empirical data research and statistics, and it's like, they're giving me definitions of intuition and I totally don't agree with them whatsoever. So it's like I'm kind of like struggling a bit because it's so hard for me, where I've come in my journey to like kind of I'm having a hard time, just kind of going along with their mindset of like that left brain analytical empirical observational type of data. You know what I mean?
Well, and I also think that direct experience is, it turns out, the greatest teacher, right? I mean, for good or for ill, when we have something come in our lives, whatever it is, we get the opportunity to grow or not grow, to
Sure.
expand or to contract, and this was definitely an expander. And, now to me, it's just common, like this is part of what I do. And it's not, and I think we all have those capabilities. We all have these other senses, and other ways of knowing, and we don't give those a lot of attention, until we, try. I mean, we hear things, trust your gut and all that, but
Well, how many times did you have to prove it to yourself? Like, what did you ever, like, did you just ever accept it and just say, all right, I'm done? Like, because like I find myself through meditation where I'll receive information or whatever in my practice, and I'm like, all right, well, it feels great, but next time we'll see if it's true or if it happens again. And then like, was that ever like, I mean, how many times did it take you to kind of trust that you're receiving this information from God?
Well, I mean, the real clincher was that I knew that something extraordinary was happening, and I didn't need proof about that. I didn't know if it was sinister, or whatever. And I think I might have shared this when we were on the show before about this idea of, I met these two priests that were also psychologists that were like, oh, you have gifts of spirit. I'm like, what the heck is that? And so they said, see if it helps people. If it helps people, then, it's good. And if you see anything ill come from it, then it's bad. And I knew that people were deeply moved. And my struggle was more to try to explain what the mechanics of that were, or how that was even possible. I mean, when you have, a spiritually transformative experience, and then you have like a whole dominoes of them, with various strangers. And that was the other thing. Situations would come into my life, where I knew that it had to be being orchestrated from something besides me. I could be in a grocery store. I could be in a restaurant. And I think we all have had those times when things come into our lives and we're like, oh, that just happened to me yesterday. Oh, that just happened yesterday. Or, that sometimes when the universe or source or whatever, however people conceive of that, the spirit, your own soul, however you want to label it, it sort of keeps coming after you until you're like, okay, all right, quit chasing me. It's like enough already. And so in that way, but the real pivotal thing for me is I was supposed to go to Wisconsin to meet this guy, Norman, who was a healer. I don't know. I don't think I shared this part of the story. And because this man, Norman, in Wisconsin, apparently had worked in a factory. He had a little child, a daughter, who had a terminal cancer. And she used to say, Daddy, hold me. It feels so good when you hold me. And he didn't really understand. And I guess he worked in a factory and there was some sort of industrial accident and someone was seriously injured and they were bleeding. And he ran to this gentleman who was bleeding and he put his hands on him and he stopped the bleeding. And Norman's like, and of course, the other factory people were around as I was told this story. And the bleeding stopped. And Norman was like, oh my gosh, and everybody's looking at him like, dude, what do you do, And he did not know he had this gift, but his daughter subsequently passed. And then he thought, oh, this must have been why. And so I was told there's this man named Norman and he was in his 30s or his 40s and he got this gift and he didn't know what was going on. He thought he was going crazy and he just finally made peace with it. And that's what he would do. He would go around to these, in this case, healing services through the Catholic Church. And he just traveled like Wisconsin and showed up at this. And they're like, I had a friend who said, you should meet Norman. Maybe he can help explain this to you. And I was like, okay. So I flew from California to Wisconsin to meet this guy named Norman. We were supposed to meet him at this church where he was going to be doing his healing thing. And so I get there, they had confirmed the meeting during the day, and afterwards Norman's going to show up. Well, I got there, we went there, and it was a healing service, and which is kind of a strange sort of thing. Anyway, and I'm sitting there and I hear go up and heal people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get that message. I'm like, I am not getting up. You know, there's no way I'm getting up and going up there. And I was with my friend Christine, who also was part of when this gift emerged. So I elbowed her and I'm like, we're supposed to go up there. And she goes, I'm not going up there. I go, I am not going up there either. And so this old man, I think his name was Lonnie or something, who had arranged the meeting, he goes, what's going on? What's going on? So we're in the pew, you know, and people, there are like priests and people up front, and people are lined up, and apparently they go up and get prayed and healed over. And I'm like, I think we're supposed to go up there, but I'm not going up there. And he's like, I go, I don't know anything about how to do this. This is no. And he goes, come on. He grabs our hands and we go up. So there's like middle pew. There's another aisle on the side where the people up there and priests up there. And this gentleman, this elderly gentleman, drags me and my friend. Now this is like, whatever, 30 years ago. So I'm a lot younger than I am now. And he goes, you girls do the healing, I'll do the praying. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And so we just stood up there, and then people started getting out of the other lines, coming to our line, my friend and I. And the priest is like giving us stink eye. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, but I kind of learned to go with it. And I'm thinking, I'm in Wisconsin, and little Appleton, Wisconsin, whatever. And I'm just doing as I feel directed to do. And then the thing ends and I'm like, let's get out of here. And I'm like, where's Norman? Was that guy Norman? And they're like, no, we don't know. Norman's not here. And I'm like, what do you mean Norman's not here? Anyway, turns out this is pre-cell phone. Norman had a flat tire on his way there. He never made it. And then I was like, okay, God, you know, I came all the way from California, flew to Wisconsin to meet this guy, Norman, to tell me what the heck's going on. And then I'm doing it. So I'm done. I'm done chasing this down. I don't care. I'm just going to go with the flow, you know? And
wow.
That's been like 30 years ago, or I don't know how many years ago, but yeah.
Wow. When you hear the messages, is it verbal? What does that sound like?
Well, and that time, I mean, again, think about this. When you think a thought, are you hearing something?
No. I mean, it sounds like
it's kind of like
right?
that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's energy. So I don't know how to answer that, you know.
So interesting.
It's not verbal per se. It's energetic.
I can't remember what all the clairs are or whatever. Like, people will receive messages, and some people actually hear like voices, right? Or some people like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different. And people always say, because I write it because it sort of comes so fast, and to get that flow going. But people are like, oh, you automatically write. And it's like, no, I'm completely present. I know what's happening. It's not like I'm possessed by something. So, but yeah, I mean, I think people see things, hear things, feel things, you know.
Sure.
So
what are you doing with it now? Like, you've written the book, or you helped co-author the book, which is an amazing story. What are you doing now? So now what I've started doing is I've started doing lives. So what I'm saying by that, and I wish I've been having lots of technical computer problems, but so I have a new computer, but anyway, where I can do what I do, which is the writing, and it appears on screen in real time. Oh, wow.
So I've been hosting every couple months these live writings, and then doing follow-up series to to unpack those because they're very poetic and they're very beautiful. And so that's my goal. I just want to get these, what I'm calling God writings, out into the world. And I just did one last month, and it was all about the way we see, and how we're seen differently. Do we see through a prism or do we see through a prison? So it really addressed the divides that we're all experiencing wherever we are on that continuum of reality, and how we can see with the eyes of love.
Sure.
So, but the writings are very beautiful and poetic, and just grasp things. So if you want me to do a little mini, I can do
let's
that.
do a little
You
mini.
can have the experience. I would have done it live for you, but my new computer, my other computer won't talk to it. So
It's all good. It's all good.
My I'm just gonna do this.
Good. And I can always edit it out where there's some lag and kind of piece them together. So
Oh, great. Good. Because then you won't have silence. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So God welcome Trey's audience. The speakers are in the ears of those who long to hear, often captured by the sound of echoes of all the echoes of themselves, as if the sweetness of the words and sentiments of love and connecting truths cascade upon the hollow rocks, often of an ego that believes itself smaller than the divinity of the being itself. So you kind of getting a feel for, and I can read it again, but the speakers are in the ears of all those who long to hear, often captured by the sound of all the echoes of themselves, as if the sweetness of the words and the sentiments of love and connecting truths cascade upon the hollow rocks, often of an ego that believes itself smaller than the divinity of the being itself. A filtering system to the smallness feared rather than the greatness embedded in all beings.
That's some powerful stuff. I can resonate with that because like it's, I'm realizing that we are all greater than these physical bodies, but the ego is always there saying, no, you're not. Right. And so that's why I resonate with that. I mean, my question to God would be like, why is it that we forget?
Okay. I'm just gonna read the whole thing together because okay. The speakers are in the ears of those who long to hear, often captured by the sound of all the echoes of themselves, as if the sweetness of the words and sentiments of love and connecting truths cascade upon the hollow rocks, often of an ego that believes itself smaller than the divinity of the being itself. A filtering system to the smallness fear rather than the greatness embedded in all beings. And you said, why is it that we forget? It's not a forgetting. It is the fear of the divine design realized in the totality. To long for something is much less threatening than receiving and finding an emptiness that is only an echo chamber of all the fears people seek to outrun. Truth waves in the divine design realized. There be no emptiness, only the fullness of all potentials realized. A growth, a launching out past the horizon seen or known, but always anchored on the launching pad of the heart opened to itself.
Oh man, I knew that was going to be deep. That just came. That was pretty amazing. I just feel like everything that I've read in my journey, I have has brought me closer to the idea that we are divine, right? Like, and I don't mean like we're souls and we're like, we go to heaven and that's it. I mean like that we are just like Jesus, right? Like we are that divine. We are that divine. We are a part of source. Like, to think about that, like Suzanne Giesemann says, we're not the ocean, we're not the waves, we are the ocean waving. So to me, that just kind of awakened this awareness of like, if I am the universe, the cosmos, if that source is inside of me, like, it just, you can see how my programming and everything that I've been raised in can go against that, right? And make you feel fearful of that, and make you feel like it's sacrilegious. Like, it's like, you cannot say that about yourself. You can't compare yourself to God. Like, but then God is a label that we put on something that we think is greater than ourselves. And to really unpack that, like, God is so infinite, like you can't even put a label on that. Like, it is the mountains, it is the ocean, it is the earth, it is us, it is the heartbeat, it's the breath, it's the flame, it's everything. It is creation. And go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're so often conditioned to believe that when we fall into our own potential, our own greatness, that in some way is minimizing somebody else. Like, the mind is so linear. It continues to do like this, not that, this, not that, that that our minds cannot hold conceptually the vastness of the infinite. We can objectify the infinite. We can we can say, I can grasp something so big if it's outside me, but it's impossible for it to live inside me. Like, our mind doesn't want to necessarily do that. It wants to think the mind is the God, the intellect's the God, so I think that it's true what you're saying, and yet we're all the creations, we're all the expressions. We don't like say, well, that tree's taller than the next one, it must think it's really hot stuff, I mean, so, but of course, and you're a parent, I'm a parent, would we ever say to our children, I don't want you to say anything, don't compliment yourself, don't feel proud of yourself, because you're putting up, don't even think that, because that means you're thinking you're better than somebody else. And I don't know that I wouldn't say that to my daughter. And I think we can claim who we are without it being a diminishment or an affront to anything else around us. Like, if we all celebrated it, we'd all make it okay, like having these kinds of unusual gifts, or this knowing, or, we can be who we are without making that be a statement of who everybody isn't, who else isn't,
Sure.
And I think that's the tough part. And that's how I hear this, is that like, that the speakers are in the ears of those who long to hear. We all want to know we're connected, we're this divinity, we're this divine expression of kindness, of goodness, of love, who long to hear, often captured by the sound of all the echoes of themselves. So, I mean, just think about what's echoing around in a lot of people's heads, just like, wake up and start doom scrolling and what's echoing in your head. I'm not saying you do that, but as if the sweetness of the words and sentiments and love and connecting truth cascade upon the hollow rocks, often of an ego that believes itself smaller than the divinity of the being itself. It's a filtering system of smallness. And so are we designed to filter ourselves and try to cram ourselves into this smaller us. So we don't get disappointed, or we don't get hurt, or we don't get, or we're not like, I'm trying to I'm going to make somebody else feel bad because I'm being who I am, and yet this greatness is in all of us. How can we make somebody else feel bad if we're all have the potentials and the greatness and the divinity inside of us? I mean, it's just like not logical, but the ego probably doesn't work that way,
No, not at all.
So
I just think once you become aware to this, right? Like you start thinking, all right, there's a lot of books that are like, what I've been reading with Dr. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank now, Wayne Dyer, with being able to have the gift that you want to create in your life, right? I can't even remember the name of it now, but it's like once you realize that you are this power, this divinity, like, is your reality, are you able to manifest things for yourself, right? Like, are you able to, if you really harness this power inside of yourself, are you able to create a life not like of materialism, but of fun and joy? Like, not saying there's not going to be struggle, but like, all right, I'm going to go do this because I know that I have this inside of me. And I know that if I want to expand my consciousness, if I want to raise my own awareness, and while doing that, raise everyone else's awareness, I can do this, I can manifest this, but it's going to take me a while to do it. Right. I know a lot of people get kind of, I guess, they get into this poor attitude when it doesn't go the way, like, a month into it. Right. Most things take a long time to change, especially at one's reality. If you think about it, like that's.
Well, and the truth is, aren't we all changing our realities all the time? I mean, think about anybody who's ever gone to college. I mean, come on. How many people are out there? They walk in the door. I have friends whose kids are just going away to college now, and they're really freaked out because they've been away, or whatever. It's like COVID, and oh my gosh, am I going to get to stay here? Or, I mean, who isn't? What aren't we doing in our lives that isn't a process, that isn't us? I think when we want it to be instant, or we think like, I'm going to create my reality, but it's all going to be happy. Well, I'm bumping around with a whole lot of other people in this reality. And I don't know. It's I think that everything is work. I mean, not work. It can be joyful work. I like to put my energy in just thinking, how can I be of service? That's really like what I'm about doing. When COVID started and we went on lockdown in California, I started a weekly live Zoom offering with guest speakers. And I've been doing that for 76 weeks consecutively. And I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. I thought like, oh yeah, we're just going to be locked down for a couple of weeks. I didn't have a plan. It'd be 76 weeks later, and so maybe you should come on my show, but anyhow, it's not a show. It's just a meeting. But anyway, so, I mean, I think that we get these opportunities to grow ourselves. And sometimes that's being the carpool mom. And sometimes that's, being
the podcaster, or being the the channeler, or whatever.
Whatever it is. And it's all like, that doesn't mean like, oh, you're the podcaster, and oh, you're the garbage person, or you're the, everybody has something of value, and everybody's touching other people has that opportunity. And it's all got meaning. It's all got the potential for greatness.
I think that's what drives me nuts, is that I hear you get so busy and caught up in like 1,000 books about people's potentials, and you're just trying to like find yours. And you're like, I am going to have this unwavering commitment of finding what it is that is inside of us. And I'm going to continue to find it, sit every day through meditation, whatever else, spiritual work, exercise, trying to make sure my body is the best shape that it can be, so I can, be one with consciousness. And then it's like, I feel like the more you try, like the more you push yourself away from that connection or that enlightenment, right?
Well, and I think that may be sort of like in the writing. Those are just echoes. Like, I better try harder. Oh, I better do this more. I need to run more. Oh, I better do, I better hit 1,000 podcasts or whatever. And I think that this idea, if we could just fall into what's called here the divine design, that we're already designed for, like, it's embedded in us. It says that. We have a filtering system to the smallness and fear rather than the greatness embedded in all beings. So if fear's I'm going to contract here, I better, if I'm always trying to get up the mountain rather than like, hey, I'm already here and I'm just going to look around and see what the view is. Because I think we all have opportunities if we're not trying to scale those or weigh them all the time, we find out that we're touching people, that we are making a difference. And, but maybe if we're so busy, like trying to scamper up some kind of ideal of that we have to be more, or, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to improve ourselves, or we shouldn't learn, or we shouldn't read, or we shouldn't do all that. But we're invited, I think, to not do it, not make that our a priori thing, and say, what is it that's in my sphere here and now, in my direct experience to touch and have interact and engage with? I mean, like you're doing it with your show, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and whoever's listening to your show, and hopefully they're not listening to it to feel like a piece of crap after they get on, like, oh, well, she's got this guy. And I've always wanted to be a podcaster, and look at it, he's doing it so great. It shouldn't be that that's an echo after the fact. It's like, wow, what's my greatness?
Sure.
And if greatness is too big of a word to get cozy with, then how can I make a difference today in my life and in the lives of others?
Sure. That's some powerful stuff. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's not, and that's the thing. It's the ego that sits there and says that puts things in rankings. And it's like, all right, well, especially with social media, right? Like, you see it all the time, like buttons, you see people, influencers, you see all of these things. It's funny, the more that I enjoy podcasting, these conversations with people like yourself, and like these experiences, like spiritually. And the more that I try, the less I enjoy. Like, the more that I try to market it, the more that I try to get the word out, the less I enjoy it. The more that I just kind of let it be, the more that I kind of let go of the rope, and just like, I'm reading this guy, Michael J. Rhodes, and he's talking about complete self-trust, not like self this, like, but the big S self, like what you're talking about, divine design, like having complete trust in that. And not only complete trust, but like complete love for yourself. Like, it's freeing.
And this idea of a divine design, I mean, I'm just whiffing here, but we want to look at everybody else's schematic, like, oh, you got divine design. Let me see your blueprint. Let me follow that. Let me build my house like your house. And, if it's divine design, it's in us already, like, I'll go back to saying, you're a parent, I'm a parent. Do you really, I mean, your kids are just sort of who they are. You can kind of help nurture and give opportunities and all that, but you can't like go in and redesign them. You can't tinker. I mean, you can't like go, oh,
Sure. You can't do anything with that.
but we do that to ourselves all the time. It's like, as human beings, we're always constantly like, oh, well, better rewire there, better,
Yeah. Better off to be.
And the divine design says it is divine, which again, coming back to the, like when my gift came, I'm never going to be able to understand how this works. I'm a smart woman, but I'm never going to, I'm never going to be able to say, this is how it works. I don't believe I could teach somebody to do it. I mean, it's just, it's a gift. Yeah. It's a gift. A gift is like, not like, well, who manufactured that gift? And what's the model number of that gift? And give me the blueprint of that gift. But we all, even when we're trying to look for our life purpose, a lot of people get kind of derailed on that. Like, okay, well, what's the model number? And where's the schematic? And when do I get the lifetime warranty? And how much should I charge for this? It just,
does your gift, your gift allows to talk with people that have passed as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find the person do you have, like, say, do you kind of allow words to flow out from people that are around, like, let's say me, or do you have to say, all right, who has passed recently in your life that you want to connect with?
The deceased people are such a small fraction of what I do. It's mostly source writing, the God writings. And I don't know, like, again, I'm not trying to be vague about this, but it's really not I'm not in control.
Sure.
In the sense of like, I don't have the phone, like to say, can you bring Eddie to the line? I think that spirit sort of arranges that, like, the same way it does for all of us. Without a me with that gift, you're all of a sudden somebody you love and have lost is so present to you and real and rich and in your energy field, and you feel them and you're connected to them, and it's and who knows, but it's real. And we wrote this book, Beyond Ever After, a heart-to-heart journey through death and the afterlife. And the big thing is people come up and go like, I have had this experience and I never told anybody. And these are like the most intimate experiences. So we're all kind of designed to, love doesn't like die at the end of our physical life. It's like, okay, no visitation anymore. They're gone. They're dead. It's like, no, they live in your heart. That love's still there, and you're still connected. And will your mind ever be able to explain that? Like, how does that work? But you can't deny that your loved one sent you a message, or that you feel them, or, and that we're held by other forces, we're held by spirit, so like their divine design only works on this side, not on the other side. Now I think that there's some sort of I don't think, I know from my own direct experience that there's an interweaving. That,
man, I just love all of these topics. Before we go though, I'm interested in hearing like more, like everything that you've written. I can totally jive with. I'm just curious, like right now from source, and if you could do it one more time, just be like, what is it that I need to hear the most right now? I'm on my journey. I am in the weeds. I need a mile marker. What is it that source has to say to me right now in this moment?
all right, we'll see how this hits you. Long answer. So you said, what is it I need to hear right now? Now I'm in the weeds and I'm on a journey. Lay down the belief you need a weed whacker to behold the seeds already sown by you. being in the garden of your life. You are not in the weeds, for you may have a horticulturally imposed training of scarcity and the ripe and ready season only for growing, or that only by amending the soil of yourself and being watered by all the master's teaching you can grow. Nay, the weeds in the mind that uses the ego and the insecurities to say this is the only raised bed good enough to flourish. Not so, not so, not so. You are seeded with all potentialities. A seed doesn't need to believe in itself to sprout or grow. A garden of life is rich in nutrients of experiences. The soil of your heart and soul fertile. Put your hands into your own soil. Trust yourself. Put the weed whacker mentality down. Trust the divine design you already and always are. Be able to notice the green growing sprouts of you emerging. Behold the blooms. Prune when it seems warranted. Remember, warmth and sunlight go a long way. Do not believe you must toil until always to grow. And be willing to be the seed, bear the growth, be patient, and not try to harvest yourself prematurely. And remember that sometimes we need support to be staked up, held by others in loving support to stand tall and grow. And weeds are the mind's games to camouflage and love and lull people into thinking that you need to take all the surroundings of your life to reveal and know the true bloom and separate what is worthy of growth. Not so, not so, not so. Weeding can be doing, seeding can be growing.
That is just so powerful.
So you see, it's like,
yeah. Wow.
You know,
Catherine,
so
I hate that we're on time. I love what you're doing. I love everything about it. Really quick, how can people find you?
Well, they can go to the website, which is beyondeverafter.com. And I am going to be having a new website going up and offering, these lives and things. And I'm getting that together, but it's probably going to be another couple months.
Well, we're going to have you come back because this is,
you're going to have to tell us how your garden's growing.
I know.
How does your garden grow?
Catherine, I can't thank you enough for joining the show. This has been fabulous. I loved every second of it.
Yep. And I will, I'll get this typed up and send it to you. And you can kind of, what I tell people is just sort of, you can just bring in this, you can see it's so multi-layered, and it's just, we could talk about personal growth, or you can just let that image speak and be in you. And, like the weed whacker, I say, it's like your personal themes. So, although it's relatable to all of us, and actually, what does it mean? What's that idea of being in the weeds? Look at a patch of weeds and look at seeds. Hold some weeds in your hand and hold some seeds. I say, like, actually do like the action, and what does that feel like? And how many people are holding the weeds in their hands of, I should have done that, I better do that, I didn't do that, or seeds. I mean, just that energetic embodiment action can shift energy big time.